Did you know that the World University Games is an international sporting and cultural festival which is staged every 2 years in the odd year? The Summer World University Games is the largest global multi-sport event for student athletes in the world. The event is second only to the Summer Olympic Games. And did you know that Durham, North Carolina and the Triangle could be the host of these games in 2027? How big of a deal is this? How about 7,000 athletes, 3,000 coaches from, yes, around the world? They could descend right here and generate not only $150 million for the local economy, but also an untold value when it comes to branding the Durham and surrounding communities. The worldwide audience to watch either by television or streaming would reach 30 million viewers. Staggering. The International University Sports Federation, or the FISU, is the international governing body for sports, university sports. They're located in Lausanne, Switzerland, and they serve as the rights holder for the event. The U.S. International University Sports Federation, or the USI-USF, that's the U.S. member for the Sports Federation, and they're located in Orlando. Now, for context, the United States has not hosted these games since 1993. That's when Buffalo was the host. So we are 6 years away for what could be a 13-day surge in our area. The Durham Sports Commission is an important part of that process and growth within the city. Founded in 2016, the DSC recognizes the opportunities that exist, such as the World University Summer Games. Another such opportunity is the ability to bring together regional and national leadership groups for this initiative, for a conversation about what this bid means for 2027. This is another session of our Bull Sessions, and we need to introduce our panelists so we can learn a little bit more about what could be happening in 6 years. First off is Denise O'Mealy. She's the CEO at the Institute for Sport and Social Justice in Orlando, Florida. She's an executive committee member of the International University Sports Federation. Again, that's the governing body of the games. She has extensive experience with the NCAA and the USTA, as well as a firm understanding of the international culture of sports, given her work with the Pan America University Sports Federation. Her role as head of delegation for a USA team in Russia in 2013 and in Taipei in 2017. Oh, and by the way, she's a former student athlete in Kingston, Jamaica. She actually played in the '93 World University Games in Buffalo. Her lifelong experience in sports has given her not only a lens to view positive impact of sports on society, but also it's given her a megaphone to champion diversity and inclusion. So let's head across the country. Our second guest today, from Florida all the way now to California, is Dan Guerrero. Now, no exaggeration here. Less than 24 hours after retiring from his post as Director of Athletics at UCLA, a post that he had held for 18 years, Dan started work as the president for the U.S. International University Sports Federation. Again, the USI-USF is the body that facilitates U.S. representation at the World University Games. So given his time at a Power 5 institution, his understanding of amateur sports in the country, and yes, just important, he competed in these games in 1970 when the event was in Italy. We understand why it is that Dan is part of our conversation today. And finally, we'll cross the country back one more time. This time we wind up in our own backyard in North Carolina. Hill Caro is our man on the ground. Hill is a longtime standing champion of sports tourism. How much so? Well, he founded the National Association of Sports Commissions. It's the only 501c3 trade association for sports and event tourism in our country. Hill has produced and directed over 100 major regional, national, and international sports events, and he was once the Olympic Committee consultant to the Africa National Olympic Committees Association. Me? My name is Trip Durham, and even though I've got 30 years experience in sports administration, I feel really small next to these giants, but I am thrilled to facilitate our conversation today. So with all that, as I get on one knee because I feel like I'm going to hyperventilate. Delise, we're going to start with you. From a global perspective and from your vantage point, what would be the significance of the World University Summer Games returning to the U.S. since Buffalo, since '93?
Thanks so much. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and to discuss this topic of which I'm so passionate. So, the World University Games are often described for context as the second largest multi sport event in the world behind the Olympics. But the University Games are unique in that it brings together young people who are elite athletes, but they're also students. From our perspective, the Games belong here. The United States is known around the world for its comprehensive collegiate sport programs. We do college sport very well. And while we do face some challenges in intercollegiate athletics, it's fair to say that this system provides opportunities for over 650,000 student athletes every year across the NCAA, the NAIA, the National Junior College Athletic Association. You know, when the US first became a member of FISU, it was a decision taken at the State Department level with the thought that American student athletes should engage with their global counterparts. We've been active participants in the Games since 1967. Every 2 years, without missing a single Games, American student athletes have represented the red, white, and blue. This bid from the Triangle Commission places the Games right in our wheelhouse. It places it right on our university campuses, giving us a chance to showcase how we do what we do and to highlight the value of our collegiate model of sport. Now, from a global standpoint, Trip, there's so many benefits. We talk about the global nature of these games, which is borne out through the diverse participants, but it's also extremely valuable for the games to be held in various parts of the world, to expose student athletes to various cultures, to expand awareness of this event, to elevate the FISU brand in the United States and worldwide, and to grow the university sport movement through the media and the broadcast reach that we have. We all know that sports really permeates every aspect of American society, and sports at the college and the university level have such a strong connection to our culture. With the interest in Olympics in the United States, to bring the games here in 2027, the year before LA 28, is also significant for us as we connect these two great events, the University Games being a major stepping stone to the Olympics. We've always known this, but this gives us the opportunity then to connect the two in many other tangible ways and to welcome the student athletes of the world back to the United States.
Dan, Delise talks about welcoming the students, and it is indeed an honor for athletes to have an opportunity to represent their respective countries in this international competition. Again, Dan, you were able to represent in 1970. Describe the experience of being part of that international environment and forecast what you think that could mean for Durham and the Triangle in 27.
Well, Tripp, certainly my experience as a participant representing the United States of America in 1970 is truly one that I will never forget, and I would venture to say that most who participate in these games never forget. As a 19-year-old to stand on the baseline of baseball ballpark in Torino, Italy, still brings chills to me before a sellout crowd, a lot of people excited about the United States playing Cuban in that last game. The stage was just absolutely fantastic, and of course, an experience that I'll never forget. Clearly, one of the proudest moments of my life.
Hill, when you think about the dozens of events that you've put on your shoulders and the things that you've put your shoulder into, Hill, over the years, what is it about North Carolina? What is it about pursuing these games, Hill, in this environment right now in history?
Well, Triff, I think first and foremost, it's a natural for our area. As Delise mentioned, we are considered a significant collegiate and university hub. We've got 10 colleges and universities right here in the Raleigh-Durham market. And we've got almost 200,000 students each semester in a non-pandemic year. So that just makes us a central focus. Obviously, our sports in the area are very competitive at a high level. We recently hosted both the NCAA men's and women's soccer championships, all 84 teams at one time, which speaks a lot for our area as well. So we've got, thanks to the universities in particular, but also the communities, the counties, the cities, and even private owners, we've got the infrastructure when it comes to sports events. We also have fantastic experience dating back to the U.S. Olympic Festival in the 80s, the World Special Olympics Summer Games in the 90s. And then think about any spring or fall weekend around here. We have probably hundreds of events going from Pee Wee football all the way up to professional sports like the Hurricanes in our area. So we have a lot of experienced folks when it comes to staging, managing, supporting, and being fans for sports events. I think we've always been a great sports state in terms of fans. So that's a very important aspect too. I see this, and why I thought it was a natural to go forward on this was this is kind of the next step maybe in our evolution from having done the Olympic Festival, kind of America's Olympic Games back then, to the international stage that the World Special Olympics Summer Games had. But that was not as much a spectator event, except for its opening ceremonies. This one is a combination of all those facets that take it up to that next level, and that's why it's the second largest Olympic-style event in the world behind the Olympic Games. And so that, to me, just says it all, and it's an opportunity for us to step on the world stage. You mentioned the broadcast coverage before. It's actually over 300 million in terms of the viewership, and we're talking about potentially 150 countries from across the planet coming here. Those kind of economic benefits and opportunities are unique and ones we should definitely take advantage of, and the timing is now.
Delisa, I want to circle back to the attributes that sports plays in our human existence. From Russia to Jamaica, Central America to the U.S., you've seen the transformative power of sports, Delisa. When different cultures do gather in our area that is foreign to most people, there are more benefits that really do come through when it comes to the experience. It's not just the wins and losses. It's not just the medals.
Absolutely. We see the power of sport manifest in so many ways. And I think the World University Games, as well as other FISU competitions and forums, create the opportunity for students from around the world to come together in common purpose. Part of my work revolves around sport and its role in social development, social justice, and social change. And we believe that sport has the power to change the world. We believe that sport transcends barriers and boundaries in a way very few other activities can. We believe it's a great unifier, a great equalizer, and that on the playing field or the courts, our differences disappear, and the things that seem to separate and divide us then go away. The international university sport movement raises the conversation level about the benefits of sport in society, as well as this very unique opportunity to connect the academic mission with sports. I think the University Games are really a true example of the value of this educational model of sport, which is markedly different from the Olympic Games, where most of those athletes are professional, they're focused solely on their athletics careers. And not to say they are not impacted as well, but the dynamic of the University Games Athletes Village is much different because these are young people they're great at their sport, but they're also still in a learning mindset and benefit greatly from cross-cultural interaction. We still live in a world that struggles with discrimination, struggles with oppression. And we know that ignorance breeds fear, fear breeds hatred, and hatred breeds violence, and then also oppression. But when you bring young people together and you give them the opportunity to engage, to interact in a climate of sportsmanship and healthy competition, to live together in the athletes' village, to eat together, to play together, you create bonds of friendship and understanding that will last a lifetime and may actually even change the world.
Delisa, it's a little bit of an unfair follow-up question, and I realize that as I am formulating the question. You mentioned that sports can change lives. How do we know? How do we know in time that bringing people together actually does have influence?
Oh, we've seen it, Trip. We've seen so many examples throughout the years. When you think about some of the work that it just comes immediately to my mind, the NBA has done in Africa, or some other organizations have used basketball as a way to connect countries that are warring with each other. We also see where sports has brought healing to a community that has suffered from a tragedy. If you look at what happened after Hurricane Katrina, when the New Orleans Saints eventually won the Super Bowl. If you look at New York, when the Yankees won after September 11, we've seen time and time again how sport has had this impact. I actually have a great story from the games, maybe almost 10 years ago now, where I felt like we personally saw the power of sport erase decades of animosity between nations. So in 2013, we took a team of about 400 American student athletes to compete in the World University Games in Kazan, Russia. And at the time, we were the first multi-sport American team to compete on Russian soil since the 1980 Summer Olympics boycott. And so we're standing in line and we're waiting to go into the opening ceremonies. And we weren't sure what to expect. We told our students to be prepared for any reaction. As a matter of fact, to be prepared for the worst reaction, because we had been booed in Serbia a few years prior to that. And, we just told them, hold your head up high, do not react, walk in proudly as representatives of the United States of America. And as we entered that arena, 400 young people walking behind the American flag, there were over 60,000 Russians sitting in the stands. And we realized that they were cheering for us. They were on their feet and they were applauding and they were cheering as our college students made their way around the stadium to their seats. It was the most impactful moment for me personally, for a lot of us who were alive during that time, but even for our student athletes to feel that kind of acceptance, and all kind of through the power of sport.
I'm glad I asked the question now. I felt sheepish on the front side, but I feel really good now on the back side. Dan, your work as a chair of the NCAA Men's Basketball Selection Committee, as well as your time with the Rose Bowl management committees. I mean, you've seen various sports organizations and how it is behind the scenes that they have to work so hard to make an event happen. Dan, I wonder what it is about these World University Games and the possibilities of them coming back in 27. What makes them both intriguing and challenging?
Well, Chet, getting the opportunity to in 27 obviously would be a great honor for the United States, as Delise mentioned. It's been since 1993 that we last had the games here in Buffalo. But it would be an honor also for the state of North Carolina and particularly the Triangle area. You think of some of the past games, and Delise just mentioned Kazan, Russia. But, we had in 2019, the games were in Naples, Italy. In 2017, they were in Chinese Taipei. In 2015, in Gwangju, South Korea. And all of these entities have gone overboard to put together just an incredible experience for all of the athletes and for the coaches that are there. So when you think about the grand scale that's required, a tremendous amount of organization that is required from both the local organizing committee and all the constituents and stakeholders that would be involved in supporting this effort, there are a lot of challenges. There's no question about that. You mentioned my experience as a member of the Division I Men's Basketball Committee and certainly on the Rose Bowl Management Committee for many, many years. It takes quite a bit, a lot of planning, as you well know, in order to be able to pull off these events, and not only on such a grand scale, but in such a class manner, the manner that's expected from all who experience those events. And it'll be the same here, certainly as we look at 27. And I believe that's, why it's so important that you have someone like Hill and his group moving forward with the throttle down so early on. I think back also to the 1984 Olympics when I was a site coordinator for one of the venues, not only for practice but also for participation, and what was required then in order to be able to get ready for for that experience. And then lastly, just recently, as I look at LA and the Olympics in 28 as the athletic director at UCLA, certainly even prior to the bid being awarded to Los Angeles, we were actively involved in planning, since ultimately the decision was made that UCLA is going to be the Olympic Village. So it requires in 27 literally a shutdown of a great part of the campus, but more specifically a lot of the athletic venues. So you think about the fact that this is 27 and it's quite a ways down the road. The planning has started now, and it will continue to move forward as we put our best foot forward to get this bid here in North Carolina.
Dan, you mentioned the grand scale. A lot of us who are familiar with events, we know housing, we know food, we know transportation, right? Those are sort of the three pillars of an event like this. Is there something that you've seen in your time that's a bit surprising, like, oh, I don't know that we ever considered that? And I don't mean that because you hadn't planned for it, but because it's just so odd. Is there something that you could enlighten us with?
Well, I mean, you nailed it. One of the key elements is the ability to have the expertise to pull off an event of this grand scale. You mentioned housing, transportation, and of course athletic facilities. Those have to be aligned, and you have to be ready to roll in the pursuit of putting on the very best event and making certain that all of those things are buttoned up. I mean, I just think, once again, in planning for the 28 Olympics, the fact that the Olympic Village won't just constitute the university, UCLA itself. And that was not anticipated early on. So you have to be flexible. There's no question about that as you look to make certain that the bid that you put forward incorporates every element in such a manner that there's no question that it'll be done in a first-class way. And we're all encouraged about what we see in the Triangle, what we see with Hill and his group. There are very few places across the country that have the ability to pull off an event like this, as you indicated earlier, one of the largest multi-sport events in the world. But the Triangle area is one of them, and having had the opportunity to experience many of those venues with my teams at UCLA, with USA Baseball and things of that nature, I think we're in good hands, and I think we've got an incredible shot to land these games.
A chance for everybody to follow up maybe on a comment that we've heard before we move on in our conversation.
I think one thing that I'll bring up that Dan and Delise may want to comment on is, Trip, we've focused on the sports aspect of the games and certainly accommodating the athletes and everything. But these games also ask you to do a cultural event as well as an educational event built around the student athletes. And so that's something I think that really complements the sports side. And as Delise mentioned, really kind of is a further coming together of people from all over the world. They can experience what we have to offer here culturally and educationally in the Triangle in North Carolina, but America as well. So I'd love to hear Dan and Delise comment about that aspect, particularly from the fact that they were participants in the games.
Oh, absolutely. Hill, that's actually one of the most unique elements, I think, of these games because of this robust cultural approach. So every games we've gone to, we've had a chance to really learn about the location, the city, the country, and really kind of be submersed in this culture. And the programming that they put on, it's at the opening ceremonies. They also do some programming at the Athletes Village. They provide some educational seminars, kind of tangential to the games. And every aspect of the entire 2 weeks that we're there, you're learning about the country and the people and engaging, and even just venturing outside the village and going into the markets, the Asian markets, or, wherever it is. It's this great experience of, wow, you're learning something every single day. I'm really looking forward to what we will do because I think, our culture is so huge and we have so many facets. If you start with, the first peoples, the Native Americans, and, build our way up to all of these various cultures that have come to the United States at one point or another. And, I'm just excited about how we will showcase that. No pressure.
It's a great question, Hill, and I think Delise really sort of covered the waterfront as it relates to the actual games itself. But FISU obviously is very dedicated to the concept of education, and incorporating it into the games is sort of a natural fit. But every other year, FISU also has a forum, the FISU Educational Forum, during the course of the year, where representatives from each of these countries that participate in these games send students to a particular place, and they engage for over a week on educational pursuits. So academic excellence is something that goes hand in hand with athletic achievement, and that's something very unique as it relates to the World University Games. And we're so proud to be a part of that. And as Delise indicated, we're thrilled to see what's in store for us when we get to North Carolina in that regard.
All right, so Hill, give it to me straight. What do we need to do to give ourselves the best chance possible to win this bid?
Well, I think it's very important in any competitive contest, right? In order to be able to prevail, you need to bring your best team. And I think we're a region. We're not a singular city. The good news is that FISU seems to be headed in the direction of regions hosting the games, as they recently announced a region in Germany for 25 for the Summer Games. And obviously there are other regions around the world that might be interested and are putting together multiple cities like we are for the event. But at the same time, our region is fairly compact. It's fairly accessible. And the rough equivalent time to get from one side of the triangle to the other is no different than it takes to get across Manhattan, in my opinion. So we have, that kind of convenience factor that will stand tall. But we're made of disparate elements, whether it's cities and counties and different universities. And so our job is to win the games. I think our job is to bring everybody together. This is a goal that's bigger than everybody, gives everybody a great, target to shoot for. Come together as one seamless entity to the extent that we can, and be able to put our best foot forward that way. There's no doubt in my mind that we have what it takes, and if we can bring our A game, we have every bit of the potential to bring these games home to the United States.
Delise, there's an adage that keeps running through my head that if it were easy, everybody would do it. Delise, tell me, how steep of a climb is this?
Yeah, so there are going to be challenges, of course, Trip. The event is a heavy lift, and Dan alluded to this earlier. Just like the Olympics, we're finding fewer cities with the capacity to bid for the World University Games. The venue requirements are significant, and all of the logistical challenges that come with bringing 10,000 people from over 150 countries into a particular region. But as I've said before, we do university sport extremely well. We're known around the world for our comprehensive programs. The facilities that exist on our campuses rival any large stadiums in any city around the world. And so we have the capacity to execute these games in a sustainable manner without the need to erect many new structures that then could fall into disuse and become white elephants. We have a lot going for us, Trip. There is a significant interest in returning to the Americas as a whole and specifically to the United States. And the legwork that has already been done by the Triangle Commission, even before the bid process opened, shows our commitment. It shows our energy and our passion around this. And then once we get into that bid process and we're chosen as the bid city, FISU will work in a collaborative way, providing a lot of support for the work of the organizing committee.
Dan, another adage that comes to mind is it's a golf analogy, play the course, don't play the competition. Give us some insights, Dan, on how the U.S. is operating to secure the bid. And are we worried about other cities, other countries that are also trying to vie for 27?
Well, Trip, since you're talking about phrases, I'm going to invoke a phrase from one of the individuals that had a very profound effect on my career and my life, and that, of course, is Coach Wooden. Play the course. Don't worry about the competition. Is exactly what Coach did on the basketball court. He and his coaches have always said they never scouted the opponent, if you will, and his mantra was be the very best that you could be. Of course, that was all about teaching the players on the court so that they could master what it is that was being taught, and then, of course, execute it during games. And he always felt that if you can master that, perform to the best of your abilities, then you have a chance to be very successful. And of course, that was the case. So when you take the games in 27, we have been recently made aware that there will be competition from South Korea, who have indicated that they are ready to enter the fray and perhaps be another suitor for the games. And we actually believe, and I think Hill will be the first one to admit this, that we are in fact going to play the course. We know what the competition is. They actually conducted and held the games in several years ago, and so they've been through the Derby. They know what's required, but we are going to be the very best that we can be. And I believe, given all of the assets that North Carolina and the Triangle bring to the table, that, as Delise indicated earlier, that we could be very, very successful. We're not going to worry about the competition. We're just going to be, again, the very best that we can be. And we believe that we'll be able to work with FISU very closely throughout this process, and then just continue to move forward as we maneuver through the waters and ultimately get that bid. But I appreciate that adage. It was very, very timely as we continue to move forward here.
Hill, I wonder, that wry smile that you just showed, is that because Dan's device went 1/4 turn, or is it something that he said about playing the course, not the competition?
No, I was trying to resist, but I'm going to have to knock on wood because both Delise and Dan went ahead, and I'm from, Eastern North Carolina, where we're totally superstitious about everything. So, I just want to ward off nemesis there, but no, I actually think competition is very, very good. I mean, I think any of us who have worked in a professional capacity, we're used to competition on a daily basis, and South Korea has already demonstrated their competence at the games, and they're very good at international and world type events. And they're going, having another competitor like that in the fray is actually going to help us do all those things that Dan and Delise talked about, be our very best. We were already heading that direction, but it keeps you mindful that you want to bring your A game, as I mentioned before, and that's what will see you through, I think. So that's why I was kind of smiling, and because I don't want to put the cart before the horse. It's a long haul to get across the finish line, but I'm very, very excited. And we've got a great team, not just here locally, but the fact that Dan and Delise, the USI-USF board, which they had us present to recently, they're all behind us, and the national sport governing bodies in our country, our U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and others are cheering for us, and that's a powerful team to bring where you've got your whole country behind you. And so I'm really thankful to be part of it all, and thinking positive the whole way.
As we start to wrap our time up, Delise, a final question for you, and it's on a personal note. You participated in the games in '93. What's it like for you to be part of this bid process?
Right. I feel like I've come full circle. In 1993, I drove up to Buffalo from Baltimore where I was still in school at Morgan State University. And I was part of a very small delegation from Jamaica. I was the only tennis player. We do a lot of running in Jamaica, not so much tennis. But what I recall most from that experience was this feeling that I was part of something big, this global community of student athletes, and that I belonged there. It was by far the most impactful experience I've ever had as a student athlete, and I never forgot it. And then 15 years later, in the mid 2000s, while I was working at the NCAA, the games came before the NCAA Board of Governors for a funding opportunity, and I was hooked back in. And since then, I've spent countless hours over the years volunteering my time in what has become really a true passion for me. I was integrally involved in the bid process for the 2023 World University Winter Games that will occur in Lake Placid, New York, first time since 1972. I've seen all sides of this event that had such an impact on me as a young person. I now sit on the FISU Executive Committee representing the United States, the same young immigrant, okay, not so young, but the same person who competed for Jamaica almost 30 years ago. Over the past 12 years, the Games have been in Asia many times. I think Hill alluded to this, mentioned this, and Dan mentioned most recently in Italy. And we look forward to 23 and 25 in Russia and Germany, respectively. And I just really value the opportunity to bring the Summer Games back to the United States and to a region in which collegiate sports is just so deeply entrenched.
Dan, Hill mentioned it earlier. We're really robust in our area. We've got a lot of events. We're fortunate to have a lot of universities, a lot of sports cultures. Sometimes we just sort of get complacent about it. The games here in 27, that would sort of shake us up a little bit in a good way, yes?
Well, yeah, and I think we've indicated this before, Trip. There are very few places in the country that could pull this thing off. I mean, the history had demonstrated success in sports in your particular area, the expertise that exists with Hill and his team, the infrastructure that exists in terms of transportation, housing, and sports facilities, as we've talked about, and really the cooperative element that exists between all the stakeholders there in North Carolina and the Triangle. I mean, it's just a great fit and sort of a natural, if you will, for a place in the United States, and what an honor it would be for again the United States, the state of North Carolina, and for the Triangle to be able to put their best foot forward. I mean, when you think about it, you talked about all of those athletes that participate in the games. Many of them will have the opportunity to come to the United States for the very first time in their lives, and it may be the only time that they come. What a place for them to be able to experience the United States for the first time, for the opportunity for North Carolina to make that first impression on the rest of the world. and it can change lives. There's no question about that. And Trip, I'm the perfect example of that. I mean, here's a very interesting story. 1970, right? I participate in the games, graduate from UCLA. Always believed that my destiny was to play in professional baseball for many years, have a long career in the major leagues, and hopefully wind up in Cooperstown. Well, of course, that didn't happen. But when you think about the next steps for me following graduation, instead of signing that professional contract, which I had the opportunity to do, and pursuing that lifelong ambition, I actually went back to Italy and worked for the Italian Baseball Federation, running camps and clinics to help grow that sport in that country. As a result of that, I wound up staying there for several years, played in, quote, their Italian major leagues. And can you believe, lo and behold, my last year there, I happened to meet a young woman on the beaches of Nettuno, Italy, that when my career ended a year later, we got married. She was from Hartford, Connecticut, was visiting her roots in Italy with her best friend, who happened to be the catcher on my team. And Anne-Marie and I have now been married for 42 wonderful years, all because of the World University Games.
I think that's a brilliant story. And having been married myself 26 years, that's better than any Hall of Fame, right? So
You got
Cooperstown's loss is your gain. Hill, you get the last comment. This is going to be a tricky question because at the moment that we're recording this, we're still a long way preparing through the timeline, the whole bit. What are next steps? Where are we now? Where are we headed in the bid process?
Oh, well, yes. Obviously, in February, the USIUSF sent its letter of intent to bid to FISU, entering the United States in the international contest. And at the time, they named us being North Carolina and the Raleigh-Durham area as their host city bid partner for that. So that concluded, if you will, the U.S. part of the process, and now we're in the international process for the games. And that actually formally gets underway in September of this year. And we've learned recently that cities will probably not know that they are going to be the chosen ones, if you will, till at least fall of next year. So in that, and that's 17 or 18 months, and then in that interim, we have lots of heavy lifting to do. You have to put forward a bid. You're expected to participate in a bid workshop by FISU. We certainly want to have a delegation go to the Winter Games that are in Lucerne, Switzerland this December, to the Summer Games, which are now set for June of next year in Chengdu, China. We will have to make a presentation to the FISU executive board and host what we hope will be a very significant site visit by the international decision makers and all. And I'm sure there'll be a number of other hoops to jump through in there as well. So it's a lot to do, even though it seems like a lot of time. And then, should we be fortunate enough to land the games, we'll think the time is running really fast on us, even though we'll have several years to put together the games.
Well, we will all stay tuned. We will do so collectively with our fingers crossed. Delise, Dan, Hill, not only thank you for being with us for this conversation, but thank you for all of the energy on behalf of the country and specifically Durham and the Triangle. And anything we can do to lend a hand, please let us know.
Thank you,
Folks,
Trip.
for those of you that have
having
been
us.
watching and listening, know that you can share our conversation on your own social channels. And also be sure to visit the Durham Sports Commission. They can be found at durhamncsports.com. My name is Trip Durham. Again, fingers crossed, and we'll see you again soon.